Flower face yourself.
I just did. I already did.
I missed it.
I did. You missed me misting. Funny.
Okay, hello.
Well, I don't have it memorized yet. Hold on.
I'm starting our 50-minute timer.
I have it pulled up right here. No, I don't. I did. I don't anymore. Welcome to the True North Podcast, where two practicing lightworkers get together for 2 hours every other week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing for the body and mind to help you live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby. Good morning.
I did my radio voice there.
That would be fun. I would love a radio show.
You have quite a voice on you. I did not know this until I listened to the recording the meditation you did for our patrons.
Did you read my message though?
I didn't read the message. Where was the message? I just got the audio recording.
Well, I posted the message in the
Facebook group?
No, in our Patreon page on the message board because basically I was up, I was doing my morning ritual and I was finished. I'm like, I'm going to jump in and do some work. And Patrick wasn't awake because it's really hard to record things, obviously, especially a meditation when you can't have any background noise. So it was like 6 a.m. I hadn't really spoke yet. All I had really done is my breathing. And so I just recorded it and I went with my gut and I'm like, I'm not even going to go back and listen to this. So you uploaded it, you put it out there, and then I was in the app and I pushed play and I was like, oh my gosh.
No, Abby, I was like, where has this voice been? Hello, I am Abby Cameron.
Well, that is my meditative, like if you listen to any of my guided meditations, it will sound like that. This particular one just happened to be a little bit deeper and guttural than my others.
I don't know. It was rich. It had like a richness to it. I actually like my morning voice.
Yeah.
I feel like I like my, I just woke up and haven't talked much voice.
Yeah.
It's like my inner James Brown comes out to play.
Nice. Oh, you really can see my whole room. I'm so glad I cleaned up all the artwork.
Yes, wow. And you can see our whole baby's room because that's where I am.
Yay.
Glenda has a job interview and she wanted to do this backdrop, but it was like right outside my office. And so I was like, well, I am moving.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you guys get to see my kid's room.
Yeah, it's perfect. Kind of. I love it. This is my home office / kids art room, hence the
kids art
over here and over here. Yeah, that whole cabinet right there.
Hard
I know,
it's like, ooh, how do other people do this? Like, and here we have, look who came to visit. Look who's actually a guest star. Do you know what that is? That's Bear.
Kitty cat.
He came to visit as soon as I started thinking about, I should get ready for the podcast recording. And then he just shows up. Mm-hmm. And he had his little, I just woke up James Brown voice on. He was like,
okay.
So he's going to be here for this.
I like it. All right.
What do you want to talk about first?
Oh my goodness. Where do we start? The list is forever long. So there's 2 things that you've completely piqued my interest on that you keep saying you're going to wait on. One of them happens to be something around your growth.
Yeah.
And the other one has to do with the number 7 and its magic. But then I also want to hear about this like brick story. Where do you want to start?
So you just want me to
But I'm curious. I do. I want you to start.
The True North Podcast with Ryan. So, I mean, I can knock 7 out really quickly. Like I mentioned that 7's been a really magical number for me, but what I've learned is that at any point in my life, that chapter of my life is defined by something attached to the number 7. You know, like I think I mentioned before that I like certain chapters of my life have to do with the group of friends I was with or the person I was dating, or you know how you kind of like clump the story of your life into chapters and those are defined by certain elements that are in your life at that point in time.
Yes.
In each like chapter, there is a thing that was important to me or prevalent or meaningful or whatever. And if I point to each of those and make a list, my relationship to them is somehow centered on the number 7. Either it's 7 of something or it's just the number 7 represents a certain thing, or I meet somebody and that number comes up in a very specific way in the context of that one specific relationship, and then it kind of becomes a defining thing that continues to build it. I even had like at one point in time I had an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I still have the spreadsheet. I just don't keep up with it. And I called it my circle of 7.
Whoa.
I don't know where this idea came from. No one planted it in my head. I didn't like go to a seminar and they gave me a good idea and I went home and did it. But it was basically just the 7 people who were the closest to me in my life. And I got all their birthdays. And it's a spreadsheet of numerology, Chinese astrology, Western astrology with sidereal, and there's like 2 different schools of thought with the zodiac. But it basically takes everything that any school of thought says about a person's life path, their blueprint from their birthday, and it just populates all these things about the 7 people who are closest to me in my life. Mm-hmm. And then there's another section that like highlights and color codes the overlap to say like, because there's that old adage that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most or something like that. And so I was like, I wonder
you are what? Say that again.
You're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Oh, damn.
That's just kind of something I've heard a lot, like just growing up. Like, I don't know that anybody, I couldn't name the person who coined that phrase. It's just kind of a concept that's always been part of my consciousness.
Okay.
So I don't know why I went with 7. But for a good chapter of my life, a lot of my identity and a lot of my introspection was centered around looking at the overlap of the people who were closest to me, the 7 people, or the people who had the most influence on me. And then kind of like looking at what their life story is according to the cosmos, and then mapping that onto my own life story to see if I can glean any insights or draw any parallels or anything from there. And it was like a really, really, really intense time of looking inward and trying to like chart my course and see my story and understand it. But it was all kind of through the number 7. And there were a lot of 7s that popped up in those numbers as well.
So, and you have no idea where 7 came from? That just, you were just drawn to it?
It's just.
Is it a lucky number? Is it, or you're just like, yeah, let's go with 7?
It's kind of like the Sarah of numbers. It's never not meaningful.
That's kind of true. I mean, you think about it in gambling, like 777.
Number 7. Yeah. And you know, you raised in a Southern Baptist world, God has a thing for 3s, 7s, 12s, 40s,
sure.
you know.
Okay.
So there's a lot of 7s in there. So I mean, I guess I was kind of pre-programmed for that number to be among the numbers that are the more meaningful ones. Mm-hmm. But then even when I discovered the Enneagram, I spent a long time thinking I was a 7 on the Enneagram. And
what are you, by the way?
Right now I am settled in a 4.
You are?
A 4 with a 3
4.
wing.
We're going to come back to that.
But you know what? I don't think we should come back to it. I think we should talk about it right now, because Enneagram just comes up a lot in conversation lately.
Yeah.
I mean it does often because it's kind of becoming a popular thing. But it's really, I'm kind of developing a little soapbox about it. Not developing. That sounds like I'm putting work into it. I'm watching a soapbox develop in my own heart and soul. And I just need a place to say some stuff about the Enneagram.
Soapboxes are usually okay. Okay.
Okay.
Well, first, I don't know a lot about the Enneagram. In fact,
good.
Very little. And we read this book for my book club called The Way Back to You.
The Road Back to You by Ian Morgan Cron.
Road Back to You. Yeah.
Road Back to You.
So we read that for my first book club, and that was like my introduction to the Enneagram. And after that, it's like I identified myself as a 4 and then just sort of never left it.
Right.
Or never went back to it.
So that's good.
So tell me more.
So the thing that drew me to the Enneagram first was just the underlying philosophy that discovering your number is the first step, and it is a process. People like to approach it like any other personality test, like the Myers-Briggs or there's a ton of them out there. I did at work, we had to do this. Yeah. And then there's like the personalysis one and all these type of things like corporate environments like to use to try to figure out where you fit in. But they all end with the result. You take the quiz, you learn, it tells you the result and says this is what you are. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of seems like a useful tool for like, here's what you can expect out of people who are like this, and here's how to communicate with this type of person. And it kind of like wraps all these actionables around it that nobody ever really fucking uses.
Yeah.
But it's kind of not helpful because it's very fixed. Like once you figure out what you are, that's just what you are. And that's fine. But the Enneagram is not that. In fact, it's the only thing that even remotely looks like a personality quiz or test or whatever that I don't even want to call it a quiz. The fact that there's even a quiz for the Enneagram rubs me the wrong way, because it's founded on the idea that your personality is a fiction that you created at a young formative age as a response to two questions. How do I get love, and how do I cope with trauma or avoid trauma? And so as you are a youngin' and you're trying to get loved and you're trying to not get hurt, you develop a set of identity things, pieces of yourself that you learn early on that you need to present as in order to get love and avoid trauma. And that set of identity pieces is what becomes your personality. It is a false self. It is not you. It is not what you are. It's just what you told yourself you needed to be in order to not get hurt and to get love. And as you grow and develop, you learn that love is available. It's not something you have to work to get or change yourself to get. It's just available to those who know what it is and how to give it. And trauma is just a part of life, and you can't avoid it. You just have to learn to cope with it and go along. And so eventually you get to a point where the things that you use to build your personality no longer serve you, so therefore your personality no longer serves you. And the Enneagram assigns a number to your personality. There are 9 numbers, and then they have wings, and each type has subtypes. So there's 27 different little things you can nestle in that says, hey, this is a thing that defines my personality. But it's not you. It's your personality. And then once you discover your number, that's the first step. And the rest of the journey is to catch yourself being your number as a means of identifying, hey, now I am acting according to my personality that I've made. I'm acting according to my false self. It's a cover story. And the point of it is to take that off and realize that you are all 9 numbers. And that a picture of spiritual and emotional and mental health is someone who is represented by all 9 numbers on the Enneagram equally. So someone says, oh, I'm a 6. And here's all the things that make a 6 a 6. And when I read about a 6, I feel seen and understood. I get that. That's great. But that's not the end of the Enneagram. That's the beginning of the Enneagram. The rest of your life, your goal is to stop being a 6. Because the more 6-ish you are, that's the more you're living in the lie that you told yourself that you had to be in order to get the things you thought you wanted and avoid the things you didn't. And I don't think people get that. I don't think people understand that that's how you use the Enneagram. That's not how you use other personality tests, and that's fine. That's not what they're designed for. But that is the I don't want to say intended use, because I'm not here to I wasn't there when it was invented and didn't talk to the people and ask them, why did you create this thing? But that seems to be the best use of the Enneagram. Is you figure out what number you are, which is hard to do. And some people live years thinking they're one number before they realize that they're a different number, right? And that's fine. So even identifying yourself is a process. But then once you really, really settle into what number you are, then the name of the game is to do everything you can to stop being that number. And every time you start looking like that number, that's a sign that you're moving back towards your own cover story and not your true self. Transcend your number. You are not your number.
This is fascinating. This is really fascinating, because I had this thought when I read this book that all of a sudden, when you put a label on something, so I put a label of a 4 on myself.
Which 4s hate being labeled.
Which I hate being labeled. Damn it! So true. But then you're right. It's like, I felt like, well, then now am I just defined by this box?
Right.
Because Enneagrams it's more commonly known, people were like, oh yeah, you're being a 4. Like, you just labeled me.
Right.
You just put me back in that box.
Right.
So
right.
You make a really interesting point here, because you're talking about your false self and going back to that no self, no problem, Buddhist idea that our personality is false. It's just what we create in our head.
Right. Your personality is not you.
Right. But when you identify and you attach a number to it, I'm trying to work through the pieces, because this is you are right. You are so...
Of course I am.
Right. And it's kind of, I mean, you basically put words to sort of what was troubling me about this whole thing. And it's one of those times where I didn't use my voice and speak up about it, because it's like, everybody loves the Enneagram, Abby. Maybe you just are being a 4 and overthinking it and thinking people shouldn't label themselves. Because then again, like what you're saying is people take this test, which I didn't know the test existed. Literally, like I read the numbers in this book and I'm like, well, I think I'm a 4. I
right. That's how you're supposed to do it. You're just supposed to look inward and just.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, good.
Go
I did that part right.
Test.
All right.
Yes,
So I didn't take the test, and then I just sort of read through it and the description and everything. But then when people do that, they're using it as a crutch. And if you take a look at young souls, which we talked about last time, those are the people that basically need to be told what number they are so that they know how to properly function. That works for them. But what you are saying is that we should be using this as a tool to then develop the rest of those numbers, and not just as a crutch to just, well, this is my number, so this is how I'm going to operate.
And this is what you should expect of me, and this is just how it's going to be until I die, because that's what I am. No.
That's inflexibility.
And I don't even like typing other people. Like if someone else identifies as a certain number, I usually try to ignore that. Because then if they start behaving like that number, my confirmation bias is going to kick in. I'm going to reduce them to that number and say, hey, you're just being this way because that's your number. When that invalidates the cause of their feelings, the motivations behind their behaviors. You're just kind of like reducing them to, oh, I know you. I understand this. I see all the things, and this is all coming from the fact that this is the number that you are. So, and it doesn't meet them as a human anymore.
It doesn't unless you use it the right way. Like if you just kind of make it like placate it in a way like, oh, that's just your 7 qualities. But the way I would use it, and the way I've kind of tried to use it when working with people, is that, so clearly your soul, if there's 9 numbers? 9 numbers. So your soul's coming in with perhaps 9 of these traits. Naturally, there's probably going to be one that's stronger. And it may be stronger because it's going to help you learn that soul lesson that you're here to learn in this lifetime. Like, I'm sure there's a reason why you present different strengths under these numbers that someone's decided to label. But so then, like, if I'm working, okay, I'm going to, without sharing too many details here, because this is more public, but I'm just mentioning Birdie, because Birdie's one of our Patreon subscribers. Like when Birdie is telling us about something and she's presenting, an issue, if I can identify and use it as a tool, like, okay, Birdie's coming at me, and I don't know the number, so I'm literally just throwing one out here. But if Birdie's coming at me like a 6, then I'm going to say, okay, the 6 kind of has these qualities. So what's driving that? Like, that's where I'm going to actually know to dig deeper. Right. And then what is that going to come back to? And because if I start digging at that, what she's presenting as her strength, it's going to help me figure out what's going to heal her or help her change.
Yes. I mean, that's good. Like, it's always something you want to be mindful of when you're trying to think of how to help them. When I mention somebody's number, on the rare occasion that I mention somebody's number, it's always to the tune of stop it. Like you're operating in a certain degree of unhealth simply by merit of the fact that you are operating as the number that you identify as. But the problem is that if someone thinks they're a certain number and you treat them that way, if they're wrong, then your interactions with them have been colored by the wrong thing. I have a friend who spent years thinking she was a 4, and then what she really wanted, 4s are identified as being artists, and she really wanted to be an artist. And I've never met a 4 who actually wants to be a 4, and she really loved the idea of being a 4. But then when you look at her motivations and some of the ways that she is in the world, it's more 1-ish. And so then all of a sudden, looking at her through the lens of 1, it's almost like she's a completely different person. But she's not. It's just that my experience of her has been 4 colored, and now it's 1 colored. And so maybe I've been meeting her in a way that wasn't in her highest good because I was going along with a mistaken identity on her part. Okay. It kind of can get in the way. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Okay. It can, because it is very left brain thinking.
Yes.
It's categorical, right? So if you're meeting people from the left brain, Western world perspective, then you are not meeting them as their true selves. Right? So the Enneagram...
You're meeting their personality. The Enneagram number is their personality. And if you meet them as their number, you are interacting with their personality. You're not interacting with them. You're not interacting with the thing behind the thing. The person they were before the world told them who to be.
Yes. And then you are missing, exactly to your point, you are missing the very thing that you should be seeing.
Right. So it's a useful tool for introspection. Because as a 4, as someone who identifies as a 4, I now have another tool to use. And it's a very potent tool, if you use it this way, to transcend that and to come into the fullness of everything that I am. And I don't find it to be a useful tool for interacting with other people. Other than the things I discover about myself in my own introspective journey using the Enneagram, I can then communicate to people in non-Enneagram language as a way of saying, here's where I am if you want to meet me here. But... and the reason that it's become a soapbox is because I see people treating the Enneagram like just any other personality quiz, and they are approaching it as though their personality is who they are. And those are two huge schools of thought where if you approach it with those mindsets, you're not going to get out of it what it has to offer.
So you're saying that the Enneagram should just be a tool that you use for yourself, for self-discovery, and not used to interact with other people as they intended it to be.
I feel like I'm trying to stay away from should. I feel like it's the most useful in that context.
Okay.
It's the most, and the only time I really talk about other people as it pertains to their own numbers is when I know that they are actively engaged in that specific type of Enneagram journey, where I know that it is their express goal to catch when they're acting their number and have invited that type of accountability for that to be pointed out. But other than that, it's like I don't type people. I don't even buy into other people's assessments of their own type. I sure as hell don't buy into the results of a quiz.
Right.
And I don't really welcome people interacting with me as a 4. Other than to point out, hey, you're being really 4-ish right now.
But doesn't I don't like it when people say that to me.
Well, only certain people, like there are very few people, like if you told me, hey, you're being 4-ish, that would be very different than like someone who doesn't know me. Like there are certain people who are in that circle who already have that trust, already have that relational capacity, who I have given either spoken or unspoken permission basically to be like, hey, call me out when I'm acting my number.
Because I would be saying that to put that on your radar so that you can either pull in your other numbers or not to just excuse your behavior. Like I'm
it's just
saying
like,
it
hey,
for you to grow.
Right. And because you know that I already am of the mindset that the more like a 4 I look, the more that's an indicator that I'm not doing my work. And so as someone who is interested in pushing me to do my work, then reminding me that I'm acting like a 4 is helping me to that end.
Okay, so you've just changed my whole perspective on this, and really
good.
You put into words exactly the issue that I had with it. So now I'm going to look at this a completely different way.
And I just feel like we need to get this out there because it's gaining traction, it's gaining popularity. There's all kinds of Enneagram talk. I'm like, please, this is not like the other ones. It is very unique. It is very useful. It is very special. Not that the other ones aren't useful and special, but there's just something different about this, and it goes deeper. It goes so much deeper. Because it's founded on the idea that your personality is not you and it's not real. Every other personality test, that's fine. But they say this is what you are. That's not what this does. And when I see people lumping it in together, it's like someone eating an amazing meal, but also they don't have any taste buds. like why? It's so much of this is wasted on you if that's all you bring to this. Okay.
So then to clarify, you're saying that is not what you are. So this is a tool that goes deeper, meaning that this tool is intended to show you which one is your strength. So then you know which ones to work on, to pull up. Is that what you're saying? Like, is that how you use this?
Everybody has all the strengths of all the numbers accessible to them all the time.
Yes. Okay. I agree with that.
And including the strengths of your number. Right. So if I'm a 4 has certain strengths, and for me to operate within those strengths isn't necessarily unhealthy, but it's the motivations that determine what number you are. And that's what you really need to like dig up and root out and figure out. And once you kind of transcend your motivations, once you stop freaking out about, I have to do these things to get love, I have to not do these things to get love, I have to do these things to avoid trauma, I have to not do, once you kind of like move past all those things, you have no use for your number. You have no use for the personality that you built that acts like the number that you identify as. And so when you don't have a use for it and you stop using it, then you, like, the Enneagram becomes a menu. And that is the place that I feel the Enneagram is meant to get people.
Okay.
Where people can't type you because you are all the types. And the truth is that all of us are all the types. Every single one of us is the entire rainbow.
Yes.
But if you think you're red, you're not going to identify as someone who's blue. But there's blue in there. You just don't see it. And so the whole idea is to take off the red glasses and help you see that you're the whole fucking spectrum.
Okay, this is really blowing my mind. I like this. You've totally shifted my perception on this.
Well, hopefully yours and everybody else who heard this.
Yeah, so here's my next question, okay, now in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to go take a look at this and study it a little bit deeper. Like, I know how to do that. I know when you go to process something, you know how to do that. But I get asked a lot of times, like, how do you start? So let's say I want to hear about your process. And maybe that'll help our listeners try to figure out where they would begin to dive deeper into this. But like, you've discovered that you are a 4, you've had this thought. So now what is your process? Is it journaling? Is it meditation? Are you asking your guides? Are you like, what does your method look like?
Yes, D, all of the above.
Okay.
I mean, I like to use every resource available to me. And so when it comes to things about me, I tend to ask those who I think know me the best, and then kind of like the whole circle of 7 thing. Like I when I first discovered the idea of the Enneagram, I found people who know me very well and who are at least somewhat familiar with each of the numbers. And I just kind of had an open dialogue with them about, like, what do you think I am? And did that with a lot of people. And then you kind of see some patterns emerge. You start to see some kind of like, there's some overlap, or you find some people saying all the same things, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, if you find really good descriptions of each of the 9 numbers, usually the one that makes you either angry or cry is a pretty good indicator that that's where you are. But then you also have those lines in the, if you don't know what the Enneagram is, then you need to like pause and read up on it, because we're talking about this as so people kind of are somewhat familiar. But you know what? You know how it's an actual diagram and it has those lines all inside the circle. Well, those point to when you're a certain number and you are operating in disintegration, you start to look like this other number. And when you start to operate within integration, you start to look like a different number. So if you're a 3 and you start to look really healthy and you're operating in your strength and you're totally integrated and coherent, you start to look like a healthy 6. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're just in stress and fight or flight and you know, the worst parts of all your motivations, you start to look like an unhealthy 9. So then you read a description of a 9. If you're in unhealth, that's going to look like you, but you may be a 3. So you kind of have to like really, 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 there is some left brain foundational stuff you have to do, because you have to understand numbers, the wings, just kind of like how the system works. And once you kind of have a grasp for how the system itself works, then you start trying things on for size. You start mapping it onto your story and your history and what moves you and what you care about and why you care about those things and what all the people who know you best say about you. And you can kind of put together this picture. But then what I found is a useful thing is you just kind of like pick the best guess based on what you have and try it on for size. I mean, that's what I do with any new idea at all, right? I try it on for size and just adopt a posture of living as though that is the truth, and just see how it fits, see how it feels, see how it coats my interactions with the universe and everything. So, okay, at first I thought I was a 7. I operated as a 7. Identified as a 7, looked for 70 things. I'm also very aware of confirmation bias. So, of course, you think you're a 7, you're going to find things that tell you you're a 7. You can decide you're any number and then have experiences that tell you, yes, you are this number. Because confirmation bias is a very strong thing, right? It's kind of like the horoscope. You can like read any horoscope from any zodiac sign and find a way for it to apply to you, right? But some of them, they just hit you deeper. That's the only way I know how to describe it. They just hit you on a deeper level. They dredge up feelings that you didn't know that you had in there to be felt, or they explain why something very small invokes a very big reaction out of you. Little things like that. And so I lived as a 7 until I realized, you know what, this isn't really explaining everything. And so then you go back and you do the work and you look at how all the numbers interact and all that stuff. And then I found myself at a 4. I thought, okay, let me try on 4 for size. Lived as a 4 for a while. What does that look like and feel like? And it still continues to be extremely accurate and precise in explaining why I am the way I am when I'm operating according to my personality. It's a very, anytime I start looking 4-ish, it's like my whole life flashes before my eyes and points to that moment and says, this is why. But 4 is the only number that does that for me. There's a lot of 9 in there. There is a lot of 7 in there. There's some 5. There's a lot of 3. Like I have a lot of ways that I express the different numbers, but none of them fully and coherently speak to the wholeness of my experience as thoroughly and robustly as a 4 with a 3 wing.
Okay, I have a question.
I have an answer.
Going to confirmation bias, I want to talk about that for just a second. Because then how do you explain where your attention goes, energy flows? Because I see what you're saying. I do know and understand confirmation bias. But you use the example of like your horoscope, reading that, and then all of a sudden things come true. How is that different though from setting an intention on something you want, and because that's where you've projected your energy, that's what sort of presents itself? Like, are you saying like is a vision board confirmation bias?
No.
Okay.
I think confirmation bias comes into play when you are when you're connecting dots that don't necessarily need to be connected. Like the way I would define confirmation bias is when you tell yourself something supports an idea that doesn't really support the idea.
How would you know the difference? Awareness?
Well, I think a lot of times if you recognize that you have confirmation bias and you get skeptical about things, the things that are true withstand the scrutiny. I do think that putting together a vision board and sending that intention out into the universe and then having it come true is a real mechanism at play. But I don't think anytime you think something and then it happened because you thought it. If you just kind of blanket coat every single event with that one explanation, that's confirmation bias, because sometimes I don't think that's what causes it to happen. You know?
Okay.
So I don't know that I don't know. I just feel like maybe I shouldn't say anymore. Did I already answer that question?
Yes,
I'm about to ramble.
I think the same thing too. I just wanted to throw that out there just for listeners, like you said. And I think the way it's just knowing that you have confirmation bias, knowing what it is, but that's what being in the present moment is. And that's what being the observer is, oh, hi Bear, he's moving around.
Because I'm getting excited.
When you're staying in the observer place, you can say, oh, I know I'm just connecting those dots because of my own confirmation bias.
I want it to be true, right?
Yeah. But you have to, that's why I was asking, because it's like you have to be in that observer state in order to sort of have that on your radar that it could even happen.
Blue Rhino is a perfect example of this.
Yes.
Because the very first time I came across that Pokemon beetle in the hotel in Florida, if I had played in a confirmation bias, it would have been like, done deal. This is the confirmation I needed. But I was intentionally skeptical about it. And then another more potent blue rhino showed up, and I was skeptical, and a more potent blue rhino showed up, and it punched through layer after layer after layer after layer of scrutiny before I was like, okay, this is no longer confirmation bias.
Yes, because you even said that it has to withstand the scrutiny, and it did.
Yes. And so now I'm a believer, but I intentionally, vehemently made sure that I'm not a believer because of confirmation bias. And that's the thing. I'm not opposed to believing in woo-woo stuff or things that are unexplainable or just deemed impossible, but I'm also very, very much wired to want to live in a world that is magical. And so therefore, I went through a whole chapter in my life where if there was a single thing that even barely lent itself to the idea that I think could be true, I just went full bore into believing that thing was 100% fact. That is confirmation bias. I wanted to believe it. I found a thing that gave me permission to believe it, or that I just assumed gave me permission to, and I used that permission as evidence that it was true.
Teenagers do that very well, like where they are in their brain developmentally. Like that's that's one of those things that gets really reinforced in teen years.
Very much so. I have a hard time with teenagers.
Yep.
Hopefully I will be over that when my son is a teenager. But right now I just can't. There's a lot of I can't there.
Yeah.
God bless the people who can.
Yeah. So, in my process, like when I'm trying to do things like that, is he tapping on your mic?
He's trying to rub up on my mic stand, and it's very flimsy because I'm in the bedroom, so it's like on a little stool, and I use the air purifier to weigh it down, and it's very, very cumbersome, and he's trying to ruin my life.
Oh.
Okay. Continue.
Goodness. No, so my process, it's very similar. Like I do exploratory journaling. I just start asking questions, and then in order to sort of get out of my ego mind, which we've talked about, and sort of tap into the soul mind through writing, is I will literally just set a timer. I will write a question down, and then I will just begin to write and try not to think, and not stop writing, because if I stop writing, then I switch back into the ego mind. So there are even times when it's like I'm pausing right now, but I don't want to lift my pencil, right? So like I'm writing that down so that I don't actually
so that you don't stop writing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that has proved to be really beneficial because I get a lot of answers that come out of that. So like in this case, like in trying to dig in deeper into the Enneagram, I would maybe ask a question, something about being a 4 or what other number, how can I use this as a tool, just as a blanket statement, and then just sort of go from there. But then I also, like once I did identify myself, I think I'm a 4, then I sort of spent the rest of my day looking for evidence that could or could not be true. And I will tell you, I spent most of my time trying to figure out that it wasn't true because I don't want to be
how you know you're a 4. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. But then in other things, like when I'm trying to process and learn something new, Enneagram or any other, I'm still working on the idea of enlightenment. It really bothers me. And so I will use like associative triggers. Like I will try to find and do things that might bring me around to the idea of enlightenment or practicing it or becoming it, or I'll try to put myself on the radar of people who are enlightened or who I think are on that path or whatever. But, because I need to process it. Like if I just sit down and just try to get into a meditative state, sort of become the observer and then work through an idea, it's blank. There's like nothing there. It's almost like I need to be busy doing things. And my best stuff comes like when I'm driving the car or when I'm doing dishes, even when I'm talking to Patrick or I'm playing. A lot of times, of course, when I'm walking or I'm outside playing. But in order to kind of keep that in the subconscious, I have to have those associative triggers. So every now and then, like if I'm working on a particular topic, I'll follow, Instagram, follow people that are on that topic. So in my feed, it's just about that topic. Or does that make sense? Am I making any sense? So
no, you're making a lot of sense.
But that's the question I get asked a lot is like, how do you start like discovering this stuff when you don't really have anybody to give you the answers? And of course, going back to your Blue Rhino too, and our guides that we talked about last time, like I get a lot of my answers from them as well.
I mean, here's the other thing. I was talking to a friend about this. Well, not about this, but about this. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. I have a million thoughts going on in my brain right now. So he was talking about people who think religion is the problem and he doesn't think religion is the problem. And I said, no, religion's not the problem. Religiosity is the problem. Like fundamentalism is the problem. Because when people talk about how religion's the problem, they're not talking about Sikhism. They're not, you don't point at a Jain and say, you're the problem. You look at the ones who have a history of killing people, right? But it's when you become a zealot about something. And it's very easy to become fundamentalist with the Enneagram.
Yes.
It's very, very easy to get very religious about the Enneagram and get very rigid about how it works and what the rules are and kind of use it as a way to try to understand life. But that's not going to help you. And it's not going to help anybody else.
That's nowhere near your true north.
Right. And so I think the best thing you can do on your Enneagram journey is to hold on loosely. You hold on, but loosely. And you have to incorporate play. You have to incorporate curiosity. You have to incorporate a constant attitude of I could be wrong. And just kind of like, it's not something that you have to figure out. It is something you move through. It's not a puzzle that gets solved. It's just like kind of a way of life. It's just a way of, it's just another layer of figuring out how to interact with yourself and your surroundings. And it's the figuring out that's important, not the having it figured out.
Yes. Because back to what we always say, life is practice. If you've mastered it, you've done something wrong.
Right.
Or you're thinking the wrong thing, let's say.
Right. So I guess like if you ever find yourself at a point where you're like, this is my number. This number explains how I act and how I am and all those things. No. Take a step back. Start over. That's not how you do it. Go do Myers-Briggs. If you want to be an INFP or whatever and have that be just whatever you are for the rest of your life, that's fine. There are things that address that and act that way and operate that way and are helpful in that capacity. This is not one of those.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't have a problem with any of the other personality types. I just need to make sure that I explain why the Enneagram is not them. Is different.
Do you believe in the use of the other ones and how they're used? Because they also put you in a box.
I don't have a problem with being put in a box. Like anytime you say you like a food or don't like a food, you're being put in a box.
Yes.
There's so many things about who and what we are in this world that are just boxable. That's just how it is. And so I don't really push back against the don't put me in a box thing. I just think that there are certain things where the box is helpful and there are certain things where the box is not. Okay. Enneagram is not boxy by nature. And if you use it in a boxy capacity, you are only getting and giving a fraction of what is there, what it has to offer.
Interesting. Yeah. I have a problem with boxes and labels, but it's the way. Well, yeah, but it's like the way it's. I mean,
see what I did? I just reduced you.
There's no way around it. You did.
I did reduce you down to your number.
That's just my 4. But there's.
I should have let it lie. I didn't let it lie. I went the other way.
Well, now I'm going to work on owning everything, all my numbers. I'm going to show up.
Own your whole rainbow.
Yeah. Oh, see, there you go. That's good. I'm going to be the rainbow. No, but I don't know how to get around this concept because it's how we know and understand and communicate, right? Like,
well, why don't you like being put in a box?
Well, I don't, I don't know if we want to get into this.
We really do.
Like, sometimes I don't want to be called female. That's a box.
Is that the reason why you don't want to be called female, just because it's a box?
No, because there's a lot of negative implications when it comes to being female. There's a lot of... and here's the thing. This is why I try to... I don't want to say let's just say this is still a thought in process, right? Because I understand that there's a lot of really good things out of being mother or being female or being coach or being whatever late sister, whatever label I'm putting. There's a lot of positives that come out of those. And that's how you understand me when I show up to you, because you know those words. Like, that's how we can relate. But there's also so many negative connotations. And so this is put on my radar, the whole idea of, like, for every, well, it's sort of 2 parts. So I'm talking about boxes and labels. It's like, how can I just show up and say, I'm human, right? I'm just human. Doesn't matter if I'm a mother or if I'm a female or if I'm white or if whatever. I am just a human with the capacity to love. Like, I just want to say that, but do you understand what that means? And is that enough? I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure that out. But then there's also the concept, when I think about the negatives and the positives within one box, like, why does there have to be both? Why can't there just be the positives? But then there's the law of the universe where there has to have a balance between the negative and the positive.
Right. The yin and the yang. Well, is there a gender identity that you think doesn't have negative implications?
I don't know that there's a word for it. Human? Homo
Yeah,
sapien. I don't know.
Well, then you start taking a step back and thinking about the things, the negative things that we all have in common.
Yes,
like,
right? So it's like...
You know, so there's negatives in any box, but there are positives in any box.
Yes. And I'm good with the positives, right?
You just don't like the boxes because of the negatives that are in the boxes.
Or like this is the one that I struggle with all the time. The lesbian box.
Right.
Right? Because as soon as I say lesbian... Like, for example, perfect example right now, I'm in the process of trying to find a babysitter for the summer so I can actually, go back to work and not feel guilty about my son being disengaged.
Right.
So that's a whole nother topic.
We'll talk about parenting in the next one.
But like when I'm putting it out there and I'm letting people know that we're an LGBT family, people run the other direction. Like, I don't want to even put that out there, but at the same time, I obviously don't want somebody watching my son that has a problem with it, right? So,
right.
But it's like, I want you to see us as people, as a family, as humans who love and we have spirits and souls, and like, see me as I am, not as this label of lesbian that you have put your own negative stuff in the box of.
Yeah. The boxes that you find yourself in predominantly get you hurt more than not.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so you don't like the boxes. Instead of not liking the people who hurt you because of the boxes that you're in.
Yeah. Well, is that am I sitting in everybody else's business?
Yep.
When I do that, when I'm worried about how you're going to perceive my lesbian box, am I sitting in your business? Because if I were sitting in my business, and we're going to go back to that word, and I were in some type of observer mode, maybe enlightened, whatever, then I should just love you as you're showing up with your conditions on me.
You know what I want? I want to give you homework.
Oh, I
want you to handcraft an actual physical lesbian box and put it on your desk and fill it with positive. Yes, like a physical thing. And I want you to fill it with positive affirmations, specifically as it pertains to your LGBTQ identity until it's full.
Okay.
And on the outside, it's just going to say lesbian. Lesbian with a period. Lesbian. And there will be your lesbian box. And it's only going to be filled with positive things.
Okay. See, I even hate that word in and of itself. There's a few words I really don't like to say. That happens to be one of them.
Because it's loaded with a bunch of pain for you.
Probably, but it's just the word lesbian. It sounds gross.
There's an island off the coast of Greece called Lesbos.
Yes.
And I don't know how accurate this is, but I remember hearing that it was predominantly populated by women. So much so that all of the relations happened woman to woman. And so then like rumors spread throughout the rest of Greece that the people on Lesbos were all just a bunch of women banging each
Lesbians.
other. And so then that's where like the idea of lesbian came from.
Yeah.
That's just so, I don't know if that's accurate, but isn't it weird how words happen? Because it is really weird how, like, gay is kind of a blanket term for people who have same-sex attraction. Mm-hmm. But then lesbian is women. Is there a word for, like, dudes?
It's
like
just
gay dudes? That's not gay? Right. So, like...
Well... Yeah, I think it's just gay. Mm-hmm.
It's just gay. But you're also gay, but you're also a lesbian because you're a woman. So there's regular gay and then there's woman gay.
But then what's queer? Like, I don't even know. I should know this.
I don't know. All of my queer friends use that term as a bucket to capture all of LGBTQ+.
And queer
like if
has
you're
a negative connotation for me. Like when somebody says queer, I'm like, oh, that was really offensive.
Well, I mean, before it had LGBTQ associations, it meant weird and odd.
Yeah.
Like how queer.
That's true. Yes.
There's so many
gay
words.
Used to mean happy.
Yeah. It's I don't know how that happened. Like I know that the word, I don't even want to say that. Okay, I'm going to say this, but in love and not in.
Yes.
I know the word fag came from a really, really, really derogatory place. Like it was like the butt of a cigarette that you would throw into a fire.
Yes.
And so calling people that was like, you're not even worth smoking. You're just worth burning. You know? And so there's a lot of history loaded in that word. And there's a lot of negative connotation in the word queer. But then gay is the completely opposite. It's almost like gay is the one that the gay people picked.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yes. But isn't it spelled G-A-Y-E?
I think it's just G-A-Y.
Is it?
I think G-A-Y-E is the name. If there's someone who has a name, like a middle name, gay, it's got an E in it.
Okay. All right.
Maybe that's like Sarah with the H.
Yeah. How do you identify with your gay?
What type of what does your lesbian box look like? No, I really wanted this to be a practice of yours because I feel like
this is good because it goes back. This sort of comes full circle to what we were talking about last week about language having a vibrational frequency.
Oh yeah, or at least transmitting the vibrational frequency of its meaning and intent.
Yes, and so now I'm wondering, when I say that word, am I putting the negative frequency on it because of my own?
Do you feel that way towards the word gay?
Yes.
When we met up for coffee,
that's our time.
Oh
wow.
God. There was one time that we met up for coffee where you actually told me you were gay.
And I was nervous. That was the first time after many years because I was not out at the Y because I could have been fired.
Right.
So all of you who I loved and adored, I never felt safe
You're very in the closet about. Right.
Yes. And
this is like our first actual reunion coffee. It was like the first of many. Like, hey, who are you now? And that was the first thing you led with was like, I'm gay. But you used the word gay. You didn't say I'm a lesbian. You didn't say I'm with a lady friend. You said I'm gay. What did that feel like for you?
Well, that was practice because I'm not in the habit of just telling people I'm gay. Like I don't go, hi, I'm Abby and I'm gay. Because I think that's weird too. It's like, do you show up and say, hi, I'm Ryan and I'm straight? Like you just don't.
No, you should say, hi, I'm gay and I'm Abby. Like really just put that cart before the horse.
Yeah, that's good. I actually like the ring of that. So I was really nervous because I honestly thought that would be the end of our relationship.
No way, really?
I believed it. And so I thought, I'm just going to get it out there and then I will know from your vibes if you're uncomfortable and then we'll never do this again. Yeah.
How did I respond?
Like, okay, whatever. It was so non-pulsed. It was just, there was no reaction. You went with it. I mean, you didn't say a single thing. Your energy didn't change. Your face didn't change. And you just like went on. And then that was like one of the best conversations we ever had. It was almost like I had this wall, this energetic wall because, that I hadn't told you. And once that was gone, it was just like the floodgates of our connection completely opened. So
that's incredible.
It is. And it's interesting then that I don't like labels because now I'm wondering, do I not like them because I feel like they're getting in my own way?
Well, I mean, you had hesitance to give yourself that label because of how I might react. And so in that moment you were sitting in my business.
Very
right?
much so. Yeah.
But it's hard for me to sit here and say you don't like labels and boxes because you're being in other people's business because it's a reality that if the wrong person finds out you're gay, they could try to kill you.
Correct. It is
not
safe.
And so there is very much a very practical, valid reason for being in other people's business about that specific box.
Yes, it's very.
So then it's a matter of, is there a way to navigate that with intentionality, with a healthy understanding of the reality of the situation, without living in fear about it, or without hating the box itself, or without letting it hinder you from living according to your true north. Mm-hmm. Like allow the box to be a box and acknowledge how it serves you without hating the box for how it's hurt you.
Use it as a tool.
Or cause other people. Yes.
Like you brought to the attention about the mind. Like the mind's not always bad. It's just a tool. You just need to know how to use it.
But you are not the mind.
Right.
And so in the same way, that is one of your boxes, but that is not what you are.
I am not the box.
Like you are not a lesbian. Mm-hmm. You are a person in a loving relationship with someone who loves you back, who happens to also be a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's our time.
That really is our time. I know. And I could keep going on this, but yeah, that's our time.
I'm so glad that we do this in 2 parts, because every Tuesday when we meet with our patrons, I think to myself, 1 hour is just not enough.
Yes.
Like, we just started digging into something really cool in the last 5 minutes of the last one. And I was like, why do we have to stop now?
Yes. And you know what's really interesting? This is, okay, whoa. Just put this together. Wow. Wow. I've been getting the message from my guides that I am supposed to be connecting with the LGBTQ community.
Really?
And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't like, do I just go find a group? And I don't know how to do that. And it's funny because I felt like all of a sudden, like, that's not where I was going with that conversation. And then we just started talking about it. And I'm like, okay.
I think you should introduce yourself to people and say, hi, I'm gay.
I'm gay. And I'm
just
happy.
See what type of community will just pop up around. And you have your little lesbian box in your hands. Like, would you like to hold this and see how you react? You could become even weirder than the crazy cat lady by being the crazy gay lady.
Oh my gosh. Oh, talk about freaking out my mother. Oh my gosh. The crazy gay lady.
I almost made this shirt. I don't know why. No, I'm not going to say it online because then someone else is going to make it, and then I want to make it. Never mind. There's going to be a shirt, and when I make it, we're going to sell it on our site, and it's
type it in the notes. I want it.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell me in the chat, and then
and then we'll be done with this episode.
Yes. So I like your idea of the homework simply because what you're telling me to do is change the vibrational frequency, and I'm doing it tangibly. I love this idea. I love it. Now I need a gratitude. Oh, you're typing. I guess I should say a gratitude. Let's.
Isn't that so great?
Okay, when we have some merch, I like to call it
That's
merch.
going to be the first shirt we make.
Oh my gosh.
I've looked for this shirt. It does not exist. I don't know how I am the first person to actually.
You are so, and not speaking my language. I'm telling you,
right?
Let's go.
Let's
go.
Perfect.
Yes.
And you can wear that. That can be your flag that you fly to be like, hey, are you my mother? Are you part of my group?
Are you my mother?
Are you my mother?
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
Okay. What's your gratitude?
My gratitude is, that there are people out in. Okay, you made this point the other day. So I've been watching the John Amaral videos on moving my energy. So he was on the Goop Lab show and whatever. But you made the point, like, nobody has filmed this or nobody's really talking about energy and energy movement and healing at all. And it's like, he said, it's time, like, this has never been recorded. It's time for people to start seeing this. It's time.
Yep.
And I'm just... And then you said there's someone else. And it's like, I'm practicing it and I'm going through a 7-day challenge right now. And I'm learning a whole lot of new skills and moving my energy in a way that I never have before, which I'm super excited about. And so I'm grateful that, like, he found enough strength and enough wisdom to say, it's time. Because I feel like it's affecting me greatly. Oh, I know he has guides. Yeah.
Because there are all kinds of guides in all kinds of ways that are telling all kinds of people in this field.
Yeah.
It's time.
But
I think that go ahead.
Well, no, like, after doing that and then doing Wim Hof breathing, which we're going to talk about one of these days, like, the combination of it all of a sudden unfolded this whole work that I see us doing. Like, I got this very clear picture and this very clear roadmap. And so I'm incredibly grateful to people like him, because I feel like it's just one more way that it sort of opened my eyes and allowed me to move and grow. So
you and I are 2 droplets in a tidal wave. Yes. But we are part of the tidal wave.
Exactly.
It's super exciting.
Yeah.
No, that's a really cool thing to be grateful for. I've been really thinking about that. We should post a link on our Facebook page to that episode of Goop.
Yep. Making a note.
So that people can watch it. My gratitude is really, really simple. I am grateful that my son is sleeping through the night again.
No, that's not simple.
Anyone who's ever been in that situation or thought those words is like, yes. But
I want to be you so bad.
He's like 2 years old and a couple of weeks. He's a couple of weeks
Yep.
past 2. And like, sometimes I forget that he's a toddler. I look at him and I think I'm like, oh, we have a kindergartner on our hands. Like last night when he came in to say goodbye, I was working in the garage and he gave me a hug and he goes, good night, Daddy. See you next time, Daddy. I love you so much. And I was like, how do you have so many words? Like, and he doesn't tell us to watch Paw Patrol. He points to the thing and goes, Nick Jr. We never told him it's called Nick Jr. I don't know. He's just anyway. And then sometimes he reminds you that he's a toddler by just waking up 14 times throughout the night.
Yes.
And we are about to get like a Wheel of Fortune style spinning wheel with our names on it to just like flick it and see who has to do it, because it's
it's a beating.
I mean, yes. And there was a time that he was an infant and he did that. And then we sleep trained him, and then he got to where he was sleeping through the night, and then we got used to it, and now we're regressing back. And we're still kind of trying to figure out why and what's the cause, and maybe there's no cause. Maybe it's just a phase that he goes through, and how do you love him through this and help him and be with him in this phase. But then, of course, you're losing sleep, and that pours into your day, and then you're going to lose sleep the next day, and then you're trying to do a podcast. And so we've been trying all kinds of different stuff. At this point, we're grasping at straws, and we finally have a mix of things where he is sleeping through the night. And I don't even want to say he is sleeping, because that makes it sound like we have returned to a state where we can expect this. But for now, over the past several nights, he has slept through the night, maybe waking up once.
Okay.
And I am just so incredibly grateful.
Yeah, for sleep.
For that both of us in the same night can sleep through the whole night. That is just,
That's
you
a
don't
big
realize, you don't know that you miss it until you don't have it.
Uh-huh.
So that's my gratitude for this.
I like it.
Chapter of my life. Actually, he did wake up this morning. Guess what time?
5.
7 a.m.
So, 7.
Oh, there's that number.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, till next time.
Until next time.
Go muck yourselves.